Welcome to the Pelvic Power Hour. Real answers to real questions from real women. Today's topic, 3 exercises for healing pelvic organ prolapse. Hi there, Isa Herrera here, and I help women have happy vaginas, happy bladders, and happy lives. Welcome to my Pelvic Power Hour podcast, where each week we tackle questions from you that help you to empower your pelvis and transform your life, right? Here we cut through the gimmicks, the gadgets, and the magic solutions to bring you real answers to your most pressing questions. Continue to elevate your knowledge and embrace your well-being. Hit that subscribe button, and now let's get to it. Make sure that you're spreading this information to all the women in your life, your mom, your sister, your girlfriends, because when we heal together as a collective, we elevate each other, right? And we lift each other. Now, today's question comes from Maria from Madrid. What can I do to fix my bladder prolapse? I feel pressure all day. Now my back hurts too. I'm 47 years old and I want to avoid surgery. So today's topic, 3 exercises for healing pelvic organ prolapse. Now, a pelvic organ prolapse occurs when the rectum, the bladder, the uterus, the intestines, right, drop into the vagina or outside the vagina, right? So the pelvic floor muscles, which is like a basket, holds all your organs, right? Your rectum, your bladder, your uterus, your intestines as well. And when they are weak, scarred, tight, or when they lack nutrients and nourishment, which I'll tell you about that in a minute, the organs can drop into the vagina or outside. So that's a pelvic organ prolapse, right? And the thing is that when women have pelvic organ prolapse, and there's 4 different degrees of pelvic organ prolapse, say that 3 times. First degree, second degree, third degree, and fourth degree. And that just tells you how severe the pelvic organ prolapse is. Many women experience symptoms like Maria did. She had pressure in the vagina. I have a pelvic organ prolapse, and I sometimes feel pressure when I am not doing my self-care. We're going to talk about that because I'm going to tell you about some exercises that you can do. Bulging. Sometimes you can see that something is bulging or protruding outside the vagina, right? Tugging. There's a sensation of pulling like deep inside the pelvis. It's sort of like this tug, right? Back pain, incontinence, sexual discomfort can be a big issue. Spotting or bleeding due to irritated vaginal tissues of the cervix, especially if it's a uterine prolapse. Vaginal dryness, another symptom, irritation. Constipation is huge. Difficulty, you know, or discomfort in bowel movements, emotional distress. Trust me, I've been there. I've experienced emotional distress over my own pelvic organ prolapse, and restricted activities because there's certain things that you can no longer do. And it really makes you feel like you are alone, like you're tackling this problem alone and there's no one else out there like you. But here's the truth. About 50% of older women will suffer from a pelvic organ prolapse in their lifetime. I saw this every single day in my clinic. Older women coming in with pelvic organ prolapse, really suffering, right? And I also saw women who've had surgeries for pelvic organ prolapse. And I'm going to tell you, it's not always pretty. So over 12% of American women will get a surgery for pelvic organ prolapse, or what they call POP, P-O-P. Vaginal birth and menopause are also a risk for pelvic organ prolapse. High body mass index triples the risk for pelvic organ prolapse. Family history. Vitamin D deficiency. I'm going to talk about vitamin D deficiency because that happened to me. I had a vitamin D deficiency. I was doing everything right. Couldn't figure out why my pelvic organ prolapse wasn't getting better. And I'm going to tell you about that in a minute too, right? So if you have pelvic organ prolapse or you suspect it, there's a couple of things that you should avoid, right? And I'm going to go through them right now. These are things that lifestyle things that you should be avoiding. So one of them is avoid the things that make you more symptomatic, but sometimes we don't know what they are. So you should be keeping some kind of journal, that ties what you're feeling to what you're doing, right? That's important. Now, don't push or strain with defecation or urination. That is a big problem, right? So a lot of women need to retrain their bladder and bowel habits, and I have an incredible program called the V Core Lift Complete um, program that helps women how to do Kegels and how to retrain their bladders and their bowel movements. Avoid being on your feet for long periods of time. I was working at the clinic. In my clinic, I was standing a lot, and so I had to start sitting, right? These are things that I had to change for myself. Heavy lifting. I stopped heavy lifting at the gym, right? High impact activities. I was running like a maniac. I stopped doing that as well. Avoid core exercises. I'm going to give you 1 to 2 core exercises later on that you're going to do that are going to, it's going to help with pelvic organ prolapse, but avoid crunches. Yep, I don't do crunches anymore and I don't recommend them. Avoid sit ups. And there's some Pilates moves that I think are also detrimental. So if you're doing Pilates, be aware of the exercises that you're doing. Wearing high heels. I was just wearing high heels for the past 2 days and I can feel pressure, right? Because it throws your pelvis out of alignment. It throws the gravitational forces more directly to the pelvis, right? When you're wearing high heels. Extending for extended periods. I spoke about that as well. So be really aware of that. Now, before I go into the exercises, I want to tell you a personal story. Um, there's a super nutrient that's essential for pelvic floor health. Now, I didn't know about this when I first started out, right? Fast forward 20 years later, I'm like, sharing this knowledge because I want you to know about this because a lot of women don't know. This powerhouse nutrient, listen to this, affects over 2,000 genes in your body. So it's an intracellular modulator. So that's about 10% of our genome, which is a lot. And it plays a big role in muscle function. Remember that, especially the pelvic floor. Now, here's the problem. And the super nutrient that I'm speaking on is vitamin D. Okay, I'm big on vitamin D for women's pelvic health and women's vitality. And 1 out of 2 women are low in vitamin D. They're deficient, right? Vitamin D is vital for pelvic organ prolapse, right? But we think that we're going to get it through the foods, and many of the foods are not are fortified, but we don't get the nutrients that we want in the foods that we should be eating, like cat liver and sardines. Many of us are not going to eat that, or salmon, right? So we have to find another way to get vitamin D into our bodies. The sun is incredible. So sunlight on your skin is what produces vitamin D in your body. But here's the catch, right? You don't want to be exposed to the sun, right? Because it can cause skin cancer and it can really harm your skin. So many women are not getting enough vitamin D, basically because they're not going outside or they're lathering up with sunscreen. So the research says that when a woman is low in vitamin D, she's at a risk for pelvic floor damage and pelvic organ prolapse because vitamin D plays a big role in muscle function, right? Women low in vitamin D suffer from sarcopenia, which basically is like muscle wasting. Interesting, right? Vitamin D influences collagen production. Now, collagen production is important for the connective tissue that's all in your pelvic floor. So you see how I'm painting this picture because it's important that we understand this, right? And some studies show that when a woman supplements with vitamin D, her pelvic floor muscle strength actually improves. So when I realized this connection and I was doing everything right, doing the Kegels, doing the modifications, and still was feeling a lot of pressure in my pelvis, I went to get some blood work up and I was severely deficient in vitamin D. So I started really taking a big deep dive on vitamin D. The problem is that most vitamin Ds out there are lacking. It's not the right form of vitamin D. They don't have K1 and K2, which is critical because it helps vitamin D do its job. So I created my own vitamin D, which is called the Vitamin D Protect. I'm going to put the link right here because I'm a big believer that all women should be on vitamin D. If there's one nutrient that I'm going to take, one supplement, it's going to be my vitamin D because of its effect on my head to toe vitality, but how it affects my pelvic floor too. So that's important, right? So now that we know about vitamin D, we know about the risk factors, we know what to avoid, I want to go into a couple of exercises that I think are critical for women to do who are suffering from pelvic organ prolapse, or they want to modify their gym exercises, or they want to prevent pelvic organ prolapse from happening in the first place, right? So the first thing I want to talk about is core, because I'm still seeing women at the gym doing sit-ups, doing crunches, creating that force in their pelvis. And I'm telling you, in my program, in the V Core program especially, I don't do any crunches. I do crunchless core. So the first exercise that I want to talk to you about is an exercise that you should be doing at the gym or as part of your exercise routine, because the pelvic floor and the abdominals are interconnected like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So when this is strong, it's going to help this maintain its vitality as well. So the first exercise that we're going to go through is called the transverse hold or belly holds. Really simple. Now, trainers are still cueing people, because I was just out of class. They're still cueing women to do what? Bring their belly buttons in, right? All up, bring your belly button in, press it in, press it in, press it in. What's going to happen is that you're going to increase intra-abdominal pressure, and you're going to create a piston effect, and your organs are going to boop, drop right out, drop down, and they're going to be stressed out. So when you do your exercises at the gym and you are stabilizing with your core, no matter what exercise you're doing, you should be bringing your belly button in towards your spine. Listen, up towards your heart. So it's like a scooping. So everybody do this, right? Inhale, prepare. Exhale, bring your belly button slightly in towards the spine, slightly, not press all the way in, slightly, and then up to the spine. Hold for 5 seconds. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 5. Now inhale, release. This is important because it creates like a lifting effect for your pelvis. And it is the foundation of how you need to stabilize at the gym to prevent pressure, excessive pressure on your organs. Now, I like something called the pelvic brace. When you cough, sneeze, laugh, lift your kids, lift your grandchildren, right? Switch positions. We have to protect our organs. So to protect our organs, we're going to incorporate the belly hold, the transverse hold, and a baby kegel. So before you cough, sneeze, or laugh, you're going to do this pelvic brace, right? Before you lift, like I said before, at when you do any activity that increases pressure. So you're going to bring your belly button up and in, and you're going to do a baby kegel, and then you're going to go like from sit to stand, right? Or you can bend down to pick something because you are protected. And this makes it so that you're not increasing intra-abdominal pressure. Breath holding at the gym is probably one of the worst things that you can do for pelvic organ prolapse. So we have to incorporate this mechanism of protection for your organs, for your vagina, for your vitality. So that's the pelvic brace, right? And if you want to learn more about Kegels, go to my episode. I think it's episode number 3. I have it on my notes here to learn all about how to do Kegels. We're going to take a deep dive into that, right? So those are the 2 exercises I want to show you. Now I want to show you a Kegel that I absolutely adore for pelvic organ prolapse. And it's an overflow. A lot of women are really seriously very weak in the pelvis, very weak in the pelvis. And they need to get pelvic strength very quickly. And the best way to do it is to work with muscles that are connected to the pelvic floor, because we know pelvic floor is what? Grand central station. It's connected to everything, to the fascial system. So we're going to work with the inner thigh muscles to get more power into our vaginas to help us stabilize our pelvic organ prolapse. Because with pelvic organ prolapse, it's all about stabilization. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter if it didn't lift up. If you're stabilized, you're not going to be asymptomatic. If you're strong in the pelvis, in the core, you're not going to be asymptomatic, right? If you have vitamin D and you're nice at a nice level, optimal level, you're going to have less issues. So you're going to take a block, put it between your knees. Okay, um, you're gonna do a kegel, like a full kegel. So I want you to imagine that the vagina is all coming together like 4 walls, because the pelvic floor is 4 walls, right? And you're gonna bring all 4 walls, the front wall, the back wall, the 2 side walls together. Then you're going to lift your vagina. It's just like lifting the panties off the chair. And then you're going to do what? Squeeze against the block. Squeeze your knees together. And that's going to give you more power. Hold for about 5 seconds. And then you inhale, release, and then you have to relax the vagina. Too many of us are kegeling ourselves into dysfunction, creating kegel tension syndrome, and that's bad because that's going to weaken you, right? That's the other spectrum, right? Too many kegels can weaken you too. That's why you need the balance, right? So one more time, you take a block, you take a pillow, you take your purse, whatever. I used to do these on the train in New York City, believe it or not, with my pillow, with my purse, right? So squeeze the knees together. Initiate the Kegel by bringing all four walls together, right? Imagine you have to use mind body connection, and you're going to lift. It's like you're lifting or you're sipping a milkshake through a straw that's in your vagina. Everything is lifting up, and then you press your knees together and you hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember to inhale and not hold your breath, right? Then you got to relax all of this after you do a Kegel. Very important. That's the reverse Kegel. Reverse Kegel is as important as a Kegel. Now, posture is everything. What I found in my clinic was that a lot of women with pelvic organ prolapse, I'll fix my shirt here, had a lot of postural dysfunction. They were not, the pelvis wasn't neutral. They were either like this or like this, but the majority of them were like this, caved in, right? Let's face it. A lot of us are caved in, right? Because pelvic floor dysfunction does what? Plays with your head, makes you want to protect yourself, and you're caved in. Plus, a lot of us on screens all day long, and we're not focused on our posture. When we're not focused on our posture as women, it gives you more pressure into the vagina, putting you at an increased risk for pelvic organ prolapse, right? Nobody talks about that. But I've seen it with thousands of women. So I'm going to give you a stretch. You can put your hands behind your back, okay? And then here, make sure that you're doing this like 2 or 3 times a day to open up your chest muscles so you're not caved in, creating a lot of pressure in your pelvis, which is going to be a piston effect and drop everything down, right? Hands behind here. You're going to hold nice and steady. I like to use this as a meditation too. So I'm going to breathe into my chest and exhale out my back. Inhale and exhale. And I will hold that stretch about 30 seconds to a minute. I would do it 2 or 3 times a day just to open yourself up. Make sure also that you're watching your posture when you're sitting at the office. The last thing you want to do is be caved in here like this and then be caved in at the bottom. And that's like that's the double whammy for pelvic organ prolapse. And we really, really have to really be careful with that, right? Posture is everything. The way we feel about ourselves shows up in posture. So that particular stretch is going to help you a lot. Make sure you're sitting upright as well, and you're not caving under, because that's going to also create a lot of tension in the pelvis, make you weak, and put you at an increased risk for pelvic organ prolapse. That's what I have for you today. I know it's a lot, but I give you a lot because you deserve a lot, and I love you. And I want to really help my community of women. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Share this with all the women in the world. I want to thank Maria for sending this question in. I was trying to figure out what questions to do this week. Keep sending in your questions. That's how I picked the question of the week. I like to bring a lot of value, and I hope that you found this information valuable. I'm going to put all the links that I spoke about here. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to share this with the women in your lives, your mom, your sister, your girlfriends, because we need this information, right? I don't do gimmicks. I don't do gadgets. All I do is pure science sprinkled with a little fairy dust, okay? So thank you for being here today. Show up next week where I'll have a different podcast for you. And thank you for being part of my community. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And I love you guys.